So far, we covered the basic things in Java, mainly how to start writing code from Python to Java. And we saw data types, how to define variables, how to perform basic calculations, how to do decision making using if and switch, using different types of loops in Java like for, while, and do while. And we focused on the syntax differences and sometimes conceptual differences. But so far we have not really written anything using object-oriented programming. What we did so far is just writing some code in Java without using the concepts that we are about to learn in object-oriented programming. Things like classes and objects and methods and constructors and will be covered starting from today. Starting from today, we'll see things that are not really similar to what you did before. In terms of what? In terms of design. We will be thinking using objects, not code. So let's get started and see why we need to write code in objects and use object-oriented programming. So the first part of this lecture will be why objects. Guys, you wrote a class, right? You use some basic data types like integer, float, and string, right? And Boolean. And you wrote code in what we call procedural programming. Yani, you use primitive data types to store values. You use loops, decisions, and output some results. You did use functions, but not from within objects. So far, what the type of programming you learned before is called what? Procedural programming. Basic data types, loops, decisions, and sometimes functions. So what you did use before is primitive data types. In Java, this is how we define X. X is what here? Integer. How many values you can store inside X? 1. So you can change it, but how many you can store? Only 1. And here we see double Y. How many values you can store in Y? Character code, same thing. So in your program so far, you used some variables, did some calculations, and outputted some kind of a result, right? So if you have a student, what are the variables that you need to use to work with a student? Tell me, Allah. ID. Student ID, and here I defined it as integer. Is this good? String what? Yeah. Name. Integers, hour completed. Is it integer? Good. GPA, is it double? Yes. How many variables I used here for one student? Can I store in one variable? Can I store the data for more than one student? No. So if you have multiple students, you would do integer student ID 1, right? So GPA 1. For the second student, you would do what? Different variables, right? So this is 2, 3 students. This is going to work. What if you have 100 students? Is this going to work? I'm not talking about loop. I'm talking now about representing data. Is this, can you have 100 variables for student ID? What about if you have 10,000 students? This is not going to work. Before using objects, we used arrays or what? Lists. Array in Java is close to what you know from Python? What do you know from Python? But arrays in not only in Java, C++ also can only store one data type. If you are my student, you remember me telling you in Python this is acceptable, right? But in other languages, the array can only store one data type, integer, double, float, and this one. See what we did here. And it worked, yani. It worked, yani. We did this in C++, we did this in Python. We did what? Parallel lists. I have an array, which is a list for student what? IDs. So I have a list of IDs. I'll store many IDs in one. And I have an array of student names. I have an array of what? So I have arrays and I have hundreds of students, and I'll ask the student to enter the data of the student in a loop. You did this before, صح ولا لا, right? تمام. ماشي. And I can print them. See here, I print for I is equal to I less than count student name I is our completed whatever. But here still, I have the IDs in one list. I have the names in another list. I have the GPAs in a third list, and I have the what? Hours completed in a fourth list. I assume the first ID, he is the same guy as the first name. Do you get that, ya shabab? I assume the first GPA belongs to the first guy in all the arrays. صح ولا لا? I assume the second one for the second student, and you so on. And I can work with this. This is a normal loop here. I can output this. But still, your data is stored as pieces, scattered pieces of integers, scattered pieces of doubles, and a list of names and so on. ماشي? In real life, we don't do things like that. In real life, we work with what? With objects or what? Things. Things. صح ولا لا? This is a chair. That's a table. I see a student. I see a laptop. This is a pen. This is a pencil. This is a ruler. Does that make sense? These are what? Things. أشياء. So far in your programming, you did not do things like that. You did work with some variables. If I ask you about a student, you will think, okay, I need an integer for his name, for his ID, string for his name, double for his GPA, and integer for hours completed. Does that make sense? I don't want you to think like a collection of variables. I want you to think like a student thing, object. So let us see how things work. Is car a thing, ya shabab? Car. Is it a thing? طيب, if I add now you need to use your brain and use some brainstorming, and it's free, صح? If I tell you a car, what comes to your mind? يلا هيك, now we need some brainstorming. Car means car has some wheels, colors, model, brand, year, motor, size, صح ولا لا? So tell me what the attributes of a car. يلا tell me. Make, what? Model, year, color, fuel type, engine size, seats, صح? This is not a complete list, صح ولا لا? Partial list. So if I tell you a car, you think about things that are what? Or attributes. خصائص سيارة. Attributes of a car. Can you add something here?
Yes.
يلا go ahead. بس إذا تعطيني شغلة إيش يلا احكي لي. أيوة مايلج ممشى، وكان بيعطيني نوع التواير، بالون مش بالون، بس هو قال لك لا نقول الشغله ايش، ما تحطنا مشاكل لما يكون حد مبعوث للمرور هون. ماشي صح؟ خليك بالهاي. ماشي؟ he said mileage صح؟ It's an important, by the way, important what? Feature of a car. So do you agree about these things يا شباب؟ تمام؟ Good. طيب, let us simplify it. Let us do what? We'll consider that what? Make, year, color, and what? Price. These, what do you call them يا شباب? What's the first word here? Attributes of what? Of a car. ماشي؟ طيب. Let's see here. The thing you see on the left here, is it a real car or just an idea? An idea of a car, صح? But if I say that Toyota Camry specific car, this is the different thing, صح ولا لا? So this is just an idea about what a car is, صح ولا لا? I can say the same thing about phone, صح? What is the make, main, operating system, camera, memory, hard disk, whatever operating system. Does that make sense? And it can be what? General idea about the phone. This is called what? Abstract. Idea. Concept. Definition. It's not a real thing on the street. This is a real phone. Huh? But if I ask you about the phone and write them in a paper, that's an idea or attributes of a phone. طيب, so what you see on the left is what? طيب, يلا. But this, what do you see now? A real car. Look at the attributes. What is the make? No. أكيد يعني أساس عمره 80. أوكي. ما ماشيين سنة ماشي. تمام. What is the year? What's the color? The price. So these attributes belong to a real car that you can drive and buy and sell. صح ولا لا? And this is a real. طيب. What about this? Is it a real car? Yes. What is it? What's the make? What's the year? Color? Colors? Tamam. So this is the idea, and this is what? A real car. How many cars you have? Millions of cars. Do they all have make? Yes. Do they all have year? Yes. Do they all have colors? And they all have a price? Millions of cars. They all have the same attributes but different information. Do you get this? Mm-hmm. But if we talk about a car, we agreed that this is our car. We will do our car this way. طيب. Let us see another car, a third car. Mercedes 2015 Pearl, and this is the price. Cadillac of the 60s, أفلام إلفيس بريسلي كلها هيك كانت. And this is another real car. Does that make sense? So what you see on the left is what? The concept of a car. What you see on the right, what? Real cars that you can drive, sell, and have, right? Do they all have the same attributes? No. Same attributes, but the information in each attribute is different. Do you get my point? This is why I'm here. Attribute, a car needs to have make, year, color, and price, and many other things. But we say to make it simple, we'll just make a list of what? Of 4 things. طيب, now, عندك music suspense. حدا عنده music suspense? Now, these are what we call in programming objects. And this is what we call what? The definition, the design, the thing are in where? From the same class, we can create millions of what? Each has its own information. So the idea, the concept, the abstraction, okay, are where? In where? The design, all the design we do where? Then from one class we create any number of what? Objects. This is a class, and this is what? Object. Right. Good. ماشي. Objects and a class. A student. Now, same example but different. A student. If I say a student, what do you think about student? Attributes of what? Do you see the words I'm repeating today? Attributes of a student, what? ID. Come on, there are so many. All students have these attributes, right? Your ID is 1, 2, 3, his ID is 4, 5, 6. Your name is Muhammad, his name is Abdullah, right? تمام. Good. لا هو كان سيريس كمان هلا مش نفس الدرجات زوجي. تمام. Good. وده بس المرات تقول يس طيب. So do you all have these attributes? But each of you has his own what? Is this a real student? No. ولا concept of a student? Is this a real student? It's a concept. يعني I don't find a student like this. But I find a student like this, تمام? He has got a nice jeans and what? A nice polo shirt, تمام? He has got curly hair. بيدفع فلوس كويسة على شعرك كمان صح؟ هيك رباني سبحان الله. He has a name, weight, height, صح, gender, right? All these things, right? He's a real student. But this one is what? A concept. A definition of what? A student. Yalla, let us see. Simplify it. How many attributes will make only? What you see on the left now is what? Idea of a concept. And what's this? This is a real student that you see in universities, right? What are the attributes? Name, college. So this is Amina. She's doing business in Stanford, and her GPA is what? 2.6. Tamam. Is this a real student or a? So is she an object or a class? Object. And what about this? Good. طيب. Let us see another student. Philip. What? ايش بيدرس فيليب؟ Law in Paris. Aisha. And this is Martha. تمام. These are what? Real students you see in campuses, right? What about the left side? The concept, the definition, the attributes of when it comes to a student who you see on the left side. So this is a class, right? And what about those 4 people? Object. From one class, can you create unlimited number of objects? So you create classes or objects from classes. So the design, the definition, everything is done where? Then you create what? Objects. Objects from one class you create the same attributes, different information. Does that make sense? Right. What's this? Cookie cutter. ايش يعني cookie cutter؟ دائما فيها تحديث تمام؟ ماشي؟ طيب. Okay. How many cutters you need to make cookies? One. All the attributes, the size, the width, the weight, all of them are what? All of them will be all the attributes are in the cutter. And which one is the class here? The cutter. And the objects are what? The real cookies. Yes or no? Yeah. But you can make different types of cookies using the same cutter. Yes or no? ما عليكم. So this cutter, I'll show you. Maybe you didn't get the idea. This is cutter, then this is what? So how you can create what? Any number of cookies from it. Does that make sense? Do you need? Okay. These are cookies, right? Different shapes. So this is a star cookie, This is a hard cookie, صح? تمام? And this is whatever. So this is a class. But from this one you can create, if you want to create star cookie, use which class? Can you create one star cookie or any number of star cookies? Good. طيب. Now what I said, can you create different? Yes. Using the same cutter, can you create these cookies? No. Yes. No, yes, you can cut it. Right? Then you put sugar, coconut, whatever you want. Does that make sense? I mean, the attributes are different. Information is different. This one we added the sugar coating, this one coconut, whatever. Vanilla. Does that make sense? Coconut. Is it the same cutter? Yeah, they even can be different, right? But the general thing is that what? A heart-shaped cookie. صح ولا لا? All of them were created from one class, but they have different coats, different coatings, different flavors, right? Does that make sense? So, did you get the idea? What is a class and what is what? طيب. So the definition مش راح اوقفك لحد ما نخلص، هاي لازم على كلاتش واحد هاي المحاضرة. تمام؟ يلا what's your question؟
كل الاتريبيوت لازم تكون كلاس واحده ولا بقدر اوزعها؟
هلا مش سؤال هذا، اوكي؟ تمام. يعني مش valid question. Now let's see examples now, real examples. How to do and how to do it in what? How to do it where? In Java, right? ماشي. Let's see the first example here. So here we have what? Basic what? يلا. Designing what? Symbol classes. You all know rectangle. When I tell you rectangle, what comes to your mind? Width and what? Length. All rectangles. This is a rectangle. صح? This table, is it a rectangle from here? This whiteboard, is it a rectangle? They all have width and what? صح ولا لا? So now, please wait, no talking. So what are the attributes that come to your mind? If it's Java, both are going to be integer or double. So these are the two attributes. Any other attribute? Rectangle. تمام? Huh? No, just make it simple. تمام? Good? So this is the rectangle. Is area an attribute? كيف قلت له؟ يعني area of the rectangle. Is it a computed value or an attribute? Is it a result of attributes or just value لوحده separate? It's a result of the values of what? So area is what? A product of width and length. صح? Is it an input from the user usually? No. What the user inputs what? And all others are what? Calculated values. Do you get my point? Do you get my point? Area is what? A computed value. It's not what? In this case, this is not an attribute. It's what? So we create what? Area is expected to be double, صح?
Yes.
So the method will calculate the value of area and return it, which is going to be what? And what's the how to calculate the area? Yalla, please pay attention. Let us see our first class. Let's see the second one. So let's see this. So what's the class name here? Look, this is what? This is how we define classes. Look at the attributes. What are the attributes? Width, which is what? Length, which is what? Other attributes we have what? What is method? Function. Why do we call it method in Java? Yes. Functions inside the class are called what? Methods. Tamam? Because in Python you could do functions outside. You don't have to. Tamam? So the method, what's the method name? What it will return? Which is what? So area is a computed value. So this is the object, the class definition of a rectangle. What's the class name? What are the attributes? What's their type? How many methods I would have? Which is what? Returns what? Do you know how to calculate this double? This is a class. Do you see this rectangle? You need to understand how we define them. طيب. I created a class called what? Look how we do this in Java. Rectangle R1 equals what? Yalla, very important. So from class rectangle, I created an object named what? And I said a new what? This is how you create an object from a class, new. If you say new rectangle, these attributes are double, صح? Will be set to what? Set to what? Yeah. What's the object name? Tamam. So how many rectangle objects we have? What is its area? 0, because what? Still, did we change the values of attributes? No. Right. Wait. What did I say here? R1 dot what? What happened? I changed the value of which attribute? To what? Wow. Good. Tamam. So of course now, am I changing R1? Only this rectangle object, صح? Which is R1. Now, do you know what's happening? صح ولا لا? R1 dot what? So did I change the value of attributes? Now, if I call the get area, it will multiply what? Width times what? You get this. Does that make sense? So this is the class. From the class, we created object. Initially, all values will be either 0 or empty. You can change the values of the object attributes. Instance variables, we call them. Look at this now. What do you see here? Rectangle, R1 equals a new rectangle. R1 dot width, R1 system, R1 dot what? Which method I'm calling? So this get area will give me the area of which object? R1. Come on. ماشي? Do you see the same order? Now, what do you see here now? Here. What do you see now? I'm creating what? What's the object name? Has nothing to do with what? But both these objects were created from which class? Each object has its own attributes. Does that make sense? Its own memory. Now, initially, R2, what's the width and height? Tamam. Do you want to change the height and width of what? So what you do now? R2 dot width equals to, and R2 dot height, and R2 dot get. So you can create any number of what? Rectangles. What's this now? When it comes to a triangle, what is comes to your mind? We'll use the simple way, not sides, base and what? So how many attributes you have here? What are they? Are they both double? Area, is it a computed value or an attribute? So now look at class name is what? Class name is what? You need to understand this. When you look top, this is the class name. And this is what? Attributes or class variables. What are they? And how many methods you have? Did you understand this? So let's do this now. Yalla. Oh, look at this. Look here. What? Here. Look here. Public class what? Public double base, public double height. These are the attributes. Right. What method I have here? Inside get area, what does it do? Don't worry about it. Double what? And return what? Return means send back. Tamam? Good? طيب. This is the class. Circle. How many attributes usually you have in a circle? One only, radius, because pi is a constant, is not an attribute, right? So area is also, area and perimeter, are they attributes or can be calculated values? So look at this one, look at it. We're getting used to this. This class is what? What's the class name? How many attributes I have? Actually 2, but one of them is variable and the other is what? Constant. And how many methods I have? 2 methods. Does that make sense? From this circle class, can I create any number of objects? So look at this class. Look at this class here. Public class what? Public double what? Get area, it will return map. You understand this, I believe. And get perimeter, it will return what? So the only attribute that I need to change when it comes to, or set when it comes to circle is what? ماشي الحال. All the 3 demos that I did today are already there. Tamam? So now I will do which classes? Circle, triangle, and what? Rectangle. Tamam? I will do the code and you will find them also recorded somewhere. ماشي? So let's see this now. I'm not really giving you everything about object-oriented programming today. Now let's talk about the first one. لو سمحت اللي بيحكوا I cannot really speak if you are talking. تمام, you can ask me. A new what here? Class. Let us do rectangle. What's the class name? I don't want a main method. No need. I'm just creating a class. Is it empty class?
Yes.
What are the attributes I said I need? Double width and double length. We don't care about public, private. We'll talk about these things later. So now I created what? A class. And how many attributes? What's the only method I need to do here? Area. يا شباب, area returns what? Double. صح? So in Java and other programming languages, the first thing you define is what? The return type. What's the method? Get area. This method returns what? Returns what? I don't care. I care about data type. So return width times length. Does that make sense? بس خلاص خلصنا. This is a rectangle. How many attributes? And تمام. Don't worry about double, private. Don't worry about these things. We'll come back to them. طيب يلا. I need to create 3 rectangles. Do I need to create them? This is a class. صح ولا لا? I can create them anywhere. New class. Look. I'll call this one rec test. Do you understand what's rec test? And this one is an application. So I'll check what? Public static void main. Tamam. I want to create 3 rectangles. Do you agree? What's the name of the class? بس لا rectangle, the name of the class. This is my question. You will answer rectangle. What's the name of the object now? Do you see this? How to create a new rectangle? New rectangle. No need. Later you'll understand this. So R1, wait. خليكم معي. Sys out. If I output the area of R1, what's the area will be? Why? R1 dot get area. Does that make sense? So now if I run this, 0. ممتاز? Good. I want to change the values of width and height. R1 dot length is equal 5.5. R1 dot width is equal to 9 point whatever. Did I set the values? Now if I call this one, it will return the whatever is in the method. Yes or no?
Yes.
That's why the area, you cannot set the area, because if you change the attributes, the area value will change. Let me run this. Is this clear? Good. Excellent. I'll create another rectangle. Object. This is the class, right? Is this a class? R whatever is equal to what? A new rectangle. And that's it. R2 dot width is equal to whatever. R2 dot length is equal to whatever. Does that make sense, ya shabab? Sys out, for example, R2 dot get. So now I have R1 and R2. Do you see this? This is not the only thing you can do here. Look, if R1 dot get area is greater than what? R2 dot what? Get area. Then I can do, طبعا, if must be what in Java? Okay, sorry. Okay, sys out, for example, R1 is large. Else, just something I show you. Else what? Sys out, for example, R2 is larger. Tamam? يلا run. Which one is larger? طيب, let me do something here. I'll make this 15. You understand what I'm doing, صح? Now what's the output? R2. Can you change R1 and R2 values? Yes. Here, after some time, you decide to change the values. R2.length is equal to 55.67. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm doing? So you can change the attributes. Does that make sense, ya shabab? Any questions so far? ماشي? I will close this. I will go and do what? Circle or rectangle. Doesn't matter now to me. New what? Class. What's the class name? Triangle. Is it? Yalla. What are the attributes of a triangle? Double base, double height. Does that make sense? How many methods I have? Get area. What does it return? Double. So get area. So which is exactly return what? 0.5 times what? Base times what? Height. Is this clear? بس خلاص. Did I create a class called triangle? How many objects I can create now? From any number of what? For each object I can call what? Okay, let me create a triangle test. Yalla. Class. Try test. Is the name clear why I'm doing this? Public static void main. Yalla. Triangle T1 equals what? A new triangle. ماشي. تمام. T1 dot base equals to what? Whatever. T1 dot height equals what? Any value. تمام. يلا sys out. Okay, T1 dot get area. Run. Good. طيب, I'll create T2 triangle. Does that make sense? T2 is equal to what? A new what? Triangle. Just wait now. T2 dot base. شوفوا معي. I want T2 to be double T1. How to do it? T1 dot base is equal T2 dot base is equal T1 dot base times 2. شو رايكم؟ صح. T2 dot height is equal T1 dot what? Times 2. Does that make sense? Did you get this, يا شباب? يعني I can use things from different objects, use it somewhere else. But this is independent and this is independent. يلا sys out now. Okay, T2 dot get area. Let me run this. Is it? طبعا you know it's going to be 4 times, okay? ماشي الحال. Let me create a third class, which is what? Circle, right? Class. And what I'm going to call the class here? Circle. This circle has only one thing. What is it? Which is double, صح? Double what? Radius. Let me define by. How we define constants in Java? Final. تمام. Final double by whatever value. I know you can use it from there, but now خلاص. Now I have two methods in this class, get area and get perimeter. Do you agree, ya shabab? Both return double, yes or no? Yes. Why I ask this before methods? Because in Java, C++, and many other programming language, the first question to ask, what does this method return? Double, get what? Area. Tamam? So what is going to return here? Return what? Pi times what? Radius times what? Radius. Does that make sense? ايش بده هذا زعلان هون؟ Okay, تمام. يلا perimeter, another method. Perimeter is going to be double, yes or no? So the method double what? Get what? Perimeter. ماشي. Return what? Return. طبعا you can store this, huh? You can store it in a value يعني, huh? Double, for example, perimeter is equal to 2 times pi times radius. Is this, huh? And return what? You understand my point, صح ولا لا? Right? خلاص. Did we design the class? Circle. ماشي? So now I'll go and create another حتى you can create it and use it anywhere, but I prefer using it circle test. Do you understand my point here? And this is going to be for a main method. Okay, this is an application. That's just the definition. What's the value? Circle C1 equals what? A new circle, and that's it. Good. C1 dot what يا شباب يلا radius is equal to whatever value. ماشي. Sys out. Good. I can say area, and here what? Plus صح? C1 dot what? Get area. I can also say perimeter صح? Here I say what? Perimeter. And say C1, which method to call from C1? Get what? Perimeter. بس خلاص ها. Good. Okay. Someone would ask, okay, can I give the radius as input? Yes. So import what? java.util.scanner, and you know the remaining صح? Because we are teaching a concept now here. صح? Here I can say double R تمام is equal cn dot next double. Okay, I'll just do the code later here. ماشي. Okay, scanner. So sorry. I'll do this here. Scanner cn is equal to new what? Scanner system dot in. وبس خلاص. And maybe at the end I need to do what? cn dot بنتكره صح؟ مظبوط. يلا run here. So double R وينه? So here, where is the double R? So I need to see here, after this, what should I do? C1 dot radius is equal to R. Does that make sense? Is it? So now I get the radius from the user as input. في شيء غلط؟ Oh, by the way, I like what? Where is it? CN? Actually, I think it stopped or something. Let me just do this out. I like always يا شباب. Do what? Enter what here? Enter radius. تمام. Enter radius. Let me see here. Okay, enter radius. Now I'm entering this value. It's going to be stored in which variable here? And then C1 dot radius is equal to what? طيب. I will do this here. تمام. Let us see. Can we do it this way? C1 is equal to what? Huh? شوفوا معي. No need for this. Does that make sense? You get my point يا شباب. Do you see that? From the input directly to the attribute of the object, right? يعني no need, huh? Let us see here. This one, enter radius 4.5, area is equal to. Do you get this يا شباب? Is it clear? So you can create as many as circles you want. The definition is where? Is here. Rectangle. And what did I create? Triangle, rectangle, and circle. 3 simple classes I created. From each class, I created what? I created any number of objects, and I showed you those objects are independent of each other. ماشي الحال. تمام. So let us see here. Each class must be in a separate file. It makes no sense to put them in a تمام. You can put them, but it's not the right way to do it. تمام. There are things that are possible, but practice is wrong. Yeah, but no need. But you don't. I don't want you to think like this. You don't put classes with code. Classes are the design. You remember that? You isolate it. Classes are design things that you use in your applications. Does that make sense? You can put this, huh? I can come here and put a main method. And sometimes I will, but in order to do it quick, I don't want to go and create a separate class. And I can come here, huh, and say main, huh? Does that make sense? I can say circle C1 is equal. Do you get that? So this is a class and has a main method. I can run, but this is not the perfect thing to do. ماشي الحال. Good. طيب. Now, so far, I said many times, when you work in Java, your project will have so many classes. Don't think Python now. Never go back and think one class or one file. Huh? Your class will have so many. 10, your project will have 20, 30, 25. I work with projects more than 1,000 classes. Does that make sense? طيب. يعني you will design a project. تمام? Things will be categorized, and you talk about software development that's getting bigger and bigger. How much software you write is no longer going to be in a file, or is it a smart way? No, because putting things in one place, they will force you to use it the way that is what available only in that place. طيب. So far, I created a circle here. Look at it. What's this? Circle, صح? Let's talk about this circle, يا شباب. This circle here. Okay? I will show now something called constructor. Sometimes it's easier to give you an example and then explain it to you. ماشي الحال؟ ماشي؟ طيب. Only circle, look. طيب. What did I do here? It's like a method, but it's not a method. Does it have the same class name? And here, what do you see here? How many attributes? طيب, inside this, what's going to happen? The value R will be given to what? The value R will be given to what? Radius, صح? This is called the constructor. Please pay attention to the next example, you'll understand it. I'll go back to the circle test. I get error here. Do you see this? It's not working, صح? Why? It's telling me that you have changed the constructor in the class. Remember, objects always need to what? Comply with what? They say here, you change the constructor in the class. Now you cannot create a circle unless you provide me with what? With how many values? And which type? And inside I will use this value and give it to what? Do you get this? طب look here now. A new circle 9.577. Did the error disappear? So now the way you create circle is no longer the older way I showed you. The way you create circle now, you must provide at least one value of which type? Why? Because the constructor, what is the constructor? I'll come to explain this. The constructor, which is the way how to create what? An object from a class. The constructor now enforces that you must supply at least one what? One double. Yes or no? But look here. Now, do I need to use this? Do I need to set the radius now? Why? Because خلاص. Why خلاص? Because when I create a circle, this value is passed to the circle object, and the value will be given to which attributes? Do you get this? Do you get this? Let me show you now. It should work. No input, خلاص. You can have the input here in circle test, ya Sayyidi. You can have the input, whatever. It's not about input. It's about how to create an object. Can you create a circle without any attribute now? What they want, look. The constructor circle, nothing is what? Undefined. What is the constructor then? Classes, ya shabab. Use constructor. What is the constructor now? This is important. A constructor is the way how to create an object from what? How to create an object. I can allow you to create the object in my own ways. Or I can provide you multiple ways. Or I can provide you only what? One way. You get this. Now, in the circle class, is there a constructor that takes nothing?
No.
طيب. أنا قبل شوي 10 minutes ago I was creating a circle without a constructor. صح ولا لا؟
Yes.
طيب. If you do not create any constructor, a default constructor will be created and you don't see it. If you don't create any constructor, a default constructor will be created and you don't see it. What do we mean by a default constructor? A default constructor is a constructor that takes no parameters. What's a default constructor? A constructor that takes no what? Like who? Let's go to rectangle and triangle. Huh? Is this rectangle? Is there a constructor?
No.
However, behind the scenes, Java created a default constructor for you. So how to create a new rectangle? Just a new rectangle and open, close, no attributes. Look here. Is this how we created a new rectangle? Did we provide a default constructor? If constructor is the default constructor is the only way you use, then no need to what? No need to write it. Java will add a default constructor by default for you. ماشي الحال. So otherwise, so here, no constructor in the rectangle, just create a new rectangle. In the triangle, did I do the same thing? Yes or no? If I go to the triangle here, look, is there a constructor? So it means what? There is a default constructor, which is what? Create an object without any parameters. صح ولا لا? طب now what happened to circle? Is there a default constructor? No. This constructor takes parameters, right? What do we call a constructor that takes parameters? Parameterized constructor. It can take one or more what? How many constructors you have in the circle?
One.
Then this is the only way to create a new object from the circle class. You must provide at least what? One, what type?
No.
Double. See, we care about types here. We don't care about names, right? Type. What if I want both? I want a default constructor? No, خلاص. If you add a parameterized one, you cannot use the default constructor unless you write it explicitly. Yani you go and what? Write it. Look at this. I will go to the circle. The question is, can I provide multiple constructors in my class? Yes. So look at this. Huh? I'll just copy paste it, ya shabab. Here, after defining all the attributes. Huh? Is it why? What's the problem now? Two constructors the same. No, I will remove this. I can set the radius to 0. Look at this now. Now, the circle class, how many constructors do you see in the circle class? 2. Then, these are two different ways to create a class, an object from what? You can use the first constructor, and you no need to give anything. In this way, the radius will be set automatically what? You can use the second constructor and provide the value for the radius. If you use the first constructor, you still need to give a value to the radius. صح ولا لا? That's fine. If you use the second constructor, automatically in the same code, the value of the constructor will be set. Let us see how to do this. Look at this, ya shabab. How many constructors I have here? 2. Tamam. So if I have 2 constructors, let us see what we can. طيب خلينا نشوف هون. Go to circle test. Now, whoa, did you notice that the error disappeared? Why? Because now the circle class has how many constructors? So you can create a circle object or using what? This constructor or what? This constructor. And you have a choice. Type, let me go to circle test now. I will say circle C2 equals new circle. But for this one, I will use what? The parameterized constructor. In the first one, I use the parameterless constructor. Do you know what I mean by parameterless now and parameterized? But for C1, I still need to do what? C1 dot what? صح? Whatever value I put here. Does that make sense? So how many ways now you can create a circle object from a circle class? 2 ways. How did we know that? If you go to and visit the circle class, you will find here a parameterized constructor. Sorry, this one is the parameterized, and this one has no parameters. I will go to rectangle. Did I provide any constructor? It means what? If you have no constructors, is it really no constructors or there is a one default created for you? That one default is parameterized or parameterless? Parameterless, صح? If you create a parameterized one, is that going to be available also? No, خلاص. You must write it explicitly. Does that make sense? طيب, I will create this one. See, public. What's the class name? Why ask you what's the class name? Because the constructor must have exactly the same as what? The class what? Name. Is this parameterized or parameterless constructor? Is it needed if it's going to be the only one? If it's the only one, Java by default creates one for you, صح? This time I'm going to do things differently. Double what? W and double what? L. So now how many parameters you need to pass to? 2. So width of the rectangle is equal to W, and what here? Length is equal to what? L. So now, do you need to set these? Sorry, length is equal to what? Now, how many constructors you have in the rectangle class? Can you use the default constructor on this one? No, you still can, but you need to add it explicitly now. You need to type it. Now, if I go to rectangle test, all code is wrong. صح ولا لا? Because what? I created, okay, and no constructor called what? There is no parameterless constructor. So, and now I will remove this now. If I do this way, is it going to work? Tell me, guys. No. Why? This one, new rectangle, 5 and 9.5. What's going to happen? 5 will be what? W, 9.5 will be what? And these values will be given. W will be given to what? And L will be given to what? Does that make sense? Do you agree with this? طيب, I'll go back to rectangle here. Rectangle test. The second one is not going to work, صح? Do I have a parameterless constructor? If you don't have a parameterless constructor, you must create one. Does that make sense? ماشي? يعني here I will do it what? 5 and 9. And do I need this now? You can choose them. You can change them later. But if you have a constructor that needs parameters from you, you must provide the parameters in the same order. In the same order. طيب, I showed you the circle. The circle has one parameterless default constructor, and the second one what? Takes one, which is radius. Now, in the rectangle, do we have a parameterless one? No, only parameterized, and needs what? 2. Right. I'll do the same here in the which one? Which one? In the triangle. Let us show the triangle. In the triangle, ya shabab, I have nothing. If you have nothing, means what? You have the default constructor. صح ولا لا? Fine. Let me do something here. I will do what here? I will say, what's the class name? Remember, why I ask you about the class name? Because the constructor must have the class name. This is one public what? Default. And now public what? Ya shabab, understand the concept. This text later you can create it in 1 minute. Tamam. And now triangle, just a second. Triangle, and here I use both are double. صح ولا لا? B and double what? H. Inside this, I can say what? Base is equal to what? B and height is equal to what? H. So now, how many different ways you can create? I don't understand.
Use B and H direct in base and height.
No, it doesn't work like this because these attributes are needed later. Yani your design is all about base and heights, tamam? And I need to close this. That's it. So now, how many different ways you can create a triangle? You don't answer this question by looking at me. You look at the number of what? Constructors. طيب, I'll make 3 constructors. Do you agree? كيف؟ عندك اعتراض؟ I'll tell you why. لا. كيفك انت؟ I'll take one here, double S, and I say width is equal to S, and ايش هو هاد؟ base, sorry, base is equal to what? And height is equal to what? طبعا, maybe the example is not the best, but if it's a triangle and it's actually the same size, it's a square يعني, مش triangle is a square, or a square is triangle. تمام. طيب, يا صديقي, whether it makes sense or it makes no sense. Do you understand what I'm doing? So now, how different ways you can create a triangle here? 3. If you use this one, you are given one value and it will be used whatever way. Here you need to give what? 2 values. Do you understand this? I'll create a triangle using these 3 different methods and then we conclude. Let's see this now. Yeah, Shabab, it's not about this is wrong or right in terms of geometry. Huh? It's not wrong or right in terms of geometry. It is how you understand it in terms of Java. Tamam? Yani maybe Handasiyan, this is not the best way, but we are not talking about that. I'm showing you how to create a class with multiple constructors. Does that make sense? So now, I'll go to triangle test here. Oh, this is still valid. صح ولا لا؟ خلي طيب. Oh. And T2, I will give it what? 5.5. How many parameters I put in the constructor of T2? So which constructor will be used? The second, which takes how many parameters? And give the same value to both what? Base and height. طيب. And now I'll create what? You know what I need, صح ولا لا? Now I'll say what? Triangle T what? Is equal to new triangle. And how many parameters I'm giving now? So it will use which constructor of the third one? Whether you like the example or not, whether it's from a geometry point of view, correct or not. Did you understand now constructors are different ways to create an object from a class? Sometimes you provide some attributes, sometimes no. But there are different ways to create or instantiate. Now we will use this word at the end of the class. Instantiate an object from a class. Let me run and make sure. Do you see all of them work? The first one used which one? The parameterless. The parameterless, if you remove it, is it going to be available by default? No. It will be available by default if you remove all constructors. Does that make sense? Did I understand? Explain all questions now. Let me see here what I have here. Constructors. What's a constructor? Okay. And this is the class on constructors. Mashi. Everything I'm talking to you. Do you see this? Ya Shabab. I was talking. I did not use the slides. I used the code. But this is everything I usually say. And we will talk about this later, next lecture. Mashi al-hal. Now, do you have any questions?